Our minds are constantly full of stimulation, worries, and overthinking. They're cluttered with thoughts about the things we're going through and the state of the world. We're regularly bombarded with decisions to make but appear to have an unlimited number of choices with everything from what clothes we're going to wear to what we want to do with our lives. You can't even buy a box of cereal without having to decide between 100 different options. So when all these things get overwhelming, we want to give our minds a break, right? But how do we do that? We get on social media, we watch movies and TV shows, we play video games, all things that only further stimulate our minds. And then we're left wondering why we never feel truly rested. And eventually all these things just accumulate and take up space in our mind, leaving us with no idea which choices are the correct ones and with very little room for thinking clearly and working to improve our lives. Now, for the longest time, I struggled with overthinking. I'm not sure I would go as far as to label it anxiety because I've never been diagnosed, but it could be to some extent. Anyway, whenever I made a big decision or when I made a decision that I wasn't totally sure about, the thought of all the things that could possibly go wrong would plague my mind until I literally felt physically sick. And for the next several days, if there was anything that I wanted to do, I'd have to push through all this clutter at the forefront of my mind so that I could at least half focus on whatever I was trying to get done. But recently that all changed. These next few things that I'm going to talk about not only help me get my overthinking under control for the most part, but they've also helped me to declutter my mind once and for all. And here's how you can do it also. So the easiest thing you can do to help you declutter your mind is to start by decluttering your living space. Our brains are hardwired to like organization, so naturally the first step to decluttering your mind is to declutter your environment. Whatever area of your house or your apartment you spend the most time in, right? The living room, the kitchen, your bedroom. Pick up whatever's on the ground, make the bed, sweep, whatever you need to do, clean the place up. The thing is, when you're living in a cluttered space, you're constantly reminding your brain of all the disorganization in your life, both physically and mentally. This in turn leads to cognitive overload, which can reduce your ability to focus and remember things. Luckily, it's easily fixed by simply cleaning up your environment. There was actually a study done in 2011 for the Journal of Neuroscience that showed that cleaning up your environment can not only help with things I just mentioned, remembering things and focusing, but it can also lead to increased productivity. So if you're doing anything that requires you to finish things up on a deadline, so if you're doing deep work, if you're having to focus, if you're doing something that requires memorization like studying, then you should start by cleaning up the space around you and you will see much better results. Another great thing you can do to declutter your mind is to reduce the total number of options you have when making a decision. When a person is faced with too many options, not only can it cause stress and anxiety, but it can also, surprise, surprise, lead to cognitive overload, cluttering the mind, which, as we've already talked about, can make you less productive because it leaves you with little mental capacity to focus on other, probably more important things. So an easy way to prevent all this and reduce the clutter in your mind is to reduce the number of options you have. I mentioned cereal earlier, right? There's hundreds of options. One thing you can do to easily reduce the number of options you have here is to pick 3 or 4 brands that you like and just cycle through those so that when you go to the store, you don't have to pick between all of these rows lining the shelves. You go this brand this week, that brand that week, this brand the week after, so on and so forth. Another example, if you've seen my videos for any length of time, then you notice that I kind of cycle through the same shirts, right? I wear a lot of black, a lot of white, blue on occasion. Today I'm wearing green. I don't think I've ever worn this shirt before. But the thing is, that's what I own. I own lots of black shirts, lots of white shirts, and a couple of extra colors here and there. Actually, not too long ago, I went through my entire closet and cleaned up a bunch of my shirts because I felt like I had too many that I didn't even wear. But every time I opened my closet, I considered wearing them, so it made picking out my outfits in the morning a lot more difficult. Whenever I go to select an outfit for the day now, I just get what I have because there is no other option. I have what I have. By the way, if you want to do this with clothes, pick a color scheme. I do earth tones because then everything matches sort of. But yeah, you don't want to just have a bunch of different colors and cycle through like an orange shirt, a green shirt, a purple shirt. Just don't do that. Anyway, the third thing I want to talk about is to set clear boundaries for what you will and will not tolerate. There's no research here. This is just something that I've noticed works for me, so it could probably work for you as well. Tolerating or putting up with things that you don't want to do or don't enjoy doing can cause mental clutter because A, putting yourself in a situation you perceive as negative will leave you focusing on the problem constantly, which happens to be the situation itself. And B, it can cause emotional overload, which can make focusing on problem solving difficult because you're trying to deal with the emotions. Make sense? Some examples of this could include staying in a toxic relationship, both romantic and platonic. This could be a friendship, your girlfriend, just people that don't serve you in general. It could also be working at a job you hate, with a boss you don't like, and tasks you don't enjoy doing. Or it could even be allowing yourself to continue falling back into bad habits, at least if it's something that you're actively trying to stop doing. I actually have a great video on how to finally quit bad habits, so if you're interested in that, check it out next. Anyway, let me give you a personal example of setting boundaries that I dealt with recently. So several weeks ago, I came across this job that I found interesting, and I applied, right? It was like for a nonprofit or something. Very similar to what I'm doing now, but maybe with a better cause. Anyway, I applied for the job and it took about a month and a half for anybody to reach out to me from the company. Now this was already kind of a red flag to me, but decided to go through with it. They asked me for an interview, we got to schedule that same week. We go through the interview process, we get it done. He explains that it's going to be a longer process and that there will probably be 4 more interviews to come. And at the end of the interview, he explained there was a few more candidates they were trying to get through, so he could reach back out to me within 2 weeks. Now these 2 weeks come and go, nothing. So one day I was sitting there thinking like, man, I applied for this job 2 months ago and have only received 1 communication from them and have only gotten through 1 of 5 stages of interviewing. Now you're having multiple stages because you want to make sure you have the right candidate. But as a candidate, having to go through 5 stages of interviewing just doesn't make sense. There's no paid time, there's no guarantees that you'll get the job, and you're gonna have to do more than just simply interview because they're gonna ask you specific questions about the company and you're gonna have to do research. This is hours and hours of your time potentially thrown away if you don't get the job. So then and there, I decided I don't really want this job that bad. So I emailed their HR manager, told him I was dropping out of the candidacy, and explained why. And his response was basically, thanks for letting us know.
Okay.
And so it's like, these people don't care, right? And I understand that. So that's something that I had to talk through with myself, because I'm not willing to put up with that anymore as a job candidate, right? Like, I don't want to put myself through 5 rounds of interviewing when it's completely unnecessary. 2 could get the job done. I'm also not willing to wait 2+ months for anybody to reach out to me from a company that I want to work for. That's insane. And so we all have things that we don't enjoy doing, right? I don't like waiting around. I don't like convoluted processes. So if it's something that I can avoid, I will choose to avoid it any day of the week. And that was one of them for me. And honestly, in the end, that worked out great for me, because I had been so consumed with thoughts about this job, right? Like, okay, how's the next interview gonna be? What's it gonna be like when I do the job? You know, just constantly worried about what if scenarios. Like, what if this happens? What if that happens? How is this gonna work? How is that gonna work? It's just something that I was, ruminating on for the 2 months that I was in the process. And so I had to decide at some point that this is taking up too much space in my mind, and I want to get rid of it. Now, as I mentioned throughout the video, decluttering your mind has loads of benefits, right? Anything ranging from improved focus all the way to increased productivity. But even if you do everything that I've mentioned here, you won't see any benefits until you actually sit down and start working on something, right? Whether that's school, work, or a personal project. And this can be hard sometimes, right? I mean, you and I both have those days where we're just feeling super unproductive and we find it hard to get started on anything that we need to do. So if you've ever felt like that, consider watching this video next, where I talk about the trick that I use to be productive even on the days where I'm just not feeling it. It might just help you out. But in the meantime, that's going to be it for this video. If you enjoyed it, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.